Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss thoughtful discussions like this one. Your support helps keep deep conversations about life, morality, and society alive. Today's topic is justice, and we begin not with laws or textbooks, but with a story, one that immediately pulls us into a moment of urgency and forces us to confront our own moral instincts. Imagine yourself as the driver of a runaway trolley, racing down a track at terrifying speed. Ahead of you, 5 workers are trapped, and you know with certainty that if nothing changes, they will die. Your brakes have failed. Panic sets in. But then you notice a side track to the right. On that track stands a single worker. You can turn the steering wheel and divert the trolley, killing 1 person instead of 5. This scenario is simple on the surface, yet emotionally overwhelming. It forces a question we rarely want to face so directly. What is the right thing to do when every option involves harm? This story does not give us time to hide behind comfort or distance. It puts responsibility squarely in our hands and asks us to choose. When people are asked what they would do in this situation, most say they would turn the trolley onto the side track. Their reasoning often sounds straightforward and deeply practical. Saving 5 lives seems better than saving 1. The logic feels almost undeniable. If deaths are unavoidable, shouldn't we minimize the loss? This response reflects a natural human impulse to reduce suffering wherever possible. Many people justify their decision by saying that allowing 5 people to die when you could have saved them would feel morally unbearable. Others connect this reasoning to real-world tragedies, where difficult sacrifices are sometimes praised because they prevent even greater harm. In moments of crisis, society often honors those who make impossible choices for the greater good. This majority response feels compassionate, responsible, and even heroic. Yet beneath its simplicity lies a powerful moral assumption that numbers matter most, and that morality can be measured by outcomes alone. Still, not everyone agrees with turning the trolley. A small but significant minority refuses to do so, and their reasons are just as serious. Some argue that deliberately choosing to kill someone, even to save others, sets a dangerous precedent. They worry that once we accept killing one to save many, we open the door to justifying atrocities in the name of efficiency or survival. History provides grim reminders of how such logic has been misused. From this perspective, the act of intentionally causing someone's death is morally different from allowing harm to occur. These individuals may feel that choosing to turn the trolley makes you directly responsible for the death of the one person, whereas doing nothing, however tragic, avoids that direct moral violation. Their position challenges us to consider whether moral limits should exist that we refuse to cross, regardless of the consequences. The debate becomes even more unsettling when the scenario changes. Imagine now that you are not the driver, but a bystander standing on a bridge above the track. The trolley is still speeding toward 5 workers, and the brakes still do not work. This time, however, there is no steering wheel. Instead, standing beside you is a large man leaning over the bridge. If you push him onto the track, his body will stop the trolley, saving the 5 workers but killing him. Once again, the numbers are the same, 1 life versus 5. Yet when asked whether they would push the man, most people refuse. This reaction surprises many, especially those who confidently chose to turn the trolley in the first scenario. What changed? Why does the same principle, saving more lives, feel so much harder to accept here? People often explain this difference by pointing to the nature of the action itself. Pushing a person feels like a personal, violent act. It requires direct physical force, intentional harm, and personal involvement in someone's death. In contrast, turning a steering wheel feels more indirect, even though the outcome is still deadly. Others argue that the man on the bridge was not part of the original danger and would have survived had you not intervened. Involving him seems like dragging an innocent person into a tragedy that was not his to bear. These explanations reveal something important about how we think morally. We do not judge actions solely by their results. We also care deeply about how those results come about, who is involved, and whether harm is intended or merely foreseen. The tension deepens when we consider professional roles, such as doctors. Imagine an emergency room where 6 patients arrive after a terrible accident. 5 have moderate injuries and can be saved with timely care. 1 is critically injured and would require all of the doctor's attention to have any chance of survival. If the doctor focuses on the 1, the 5 will die. If the doctor treats the 5, the 1 will die. Faced with this decision, most people believe the doctor should save the 5. Here again, numbers seem to matter, and the decision feels less morally troubling than pushing someone off a bridge. Perhaps this is because doctors are trained to allocate limited resources, or because no one is being used as a means to save others. The deaths feel tragic, but not morally corrupt. Now consider a darker variation. A transplant surgeon has 5 patients who will die without organ transplants. Each needs a different organ. There are no donors available. In the next room lies a healthy person who came in for a routine checkup. If the surgeon kills this person and harvests their organs, the 5 patients will live. Despite the identical arithmetic, almost everyone rejects this option with horror. The idea feels deeply wrong, even monstrous. This reaction exposes a powerful moral boundary. Using an innocent person purely as a means to an end violates something fundamental about human dignity. No amount of good consequences seems able to justify it. From these stories, 2 broad moral approaches begin to emerge. The first is known as consequentialism. This way of thinking judges actions by their outcomes. According to this view, the morally right action is the one that produces the best overall results, often defined as the greatest happiness or the least suffering. When people argue that saving 5 lives is better than saving 1, they are reasoning consequentially. This approach feels intuitive, especially in emergencies, and it aligns with many everyday decisions where we try to minimize harm and maximize benefit. The second approach is categorical or duty-based moral reasoning. This perspective holds that certain actions are right or wrong in themselves, regardless of their consequences. From this view, killing an innocent person is categorically wrong, even if doing so would save others. People who reject pushing the man off the bridge or harvesting organs often rely on this kind of reasoning. They believe that moral rules, rights, and duties place limits on what we are allowed to do, even in desperate situations. This approach emphasizes respect for persons and the intrinsic value of human life. These 2 ways of thinking have been developed by some of history's greatest philosophers. Utilitarianism, the most famous form of consequentialism, was articulated by Jeremy Bentham, who argued that morality should aim to maximize happiness and minimize pain. Immanuel Kant, on the other hand, is the most influential defender of categorical moral reasoning. Kant argued that humans should never be treated merely as means to an end, but always as ends in themselves. These philosophical frameworks help us understand why our intuitions clash in different cases. Studying moral philosophy is not just an academic exercise. It connects directly to real political and social debates, questions about equality, free speech, punishment, war, medical ethics, and individual rights. Philosophy forces us to examine the assumptions we carry into these debates, often assumptions we did not realize we had. It challenges us to justify our beliefs, not just feel them. This process can be uncomfortable, because it makes the familiar seem strange and unsettles our sense of certainty. There are risks in this kind of thinking. Personally, philosophy can feel like a loss of innocence. Once you start questioning your moral instincts, you can't simply return to unexamined beliefs. Politically, philosophy can distance people from conventional views and make them seem impractical or overly critical. Even in ancient times, philosophers were warned that too much questioning could undermine social stability. Skepticism, throwing up one's hands, and claiming that all moral views are equally subjective, often appears tempting at this point. Yet skepticism is not a solution. We cannot avoid moral questions because we live them every day through our choices and actions. Even refusing to choose is itself a choice. As Kant observed, skepticism may offer a place to rest, but it cannot be a permanent home for reason. Moral reflection is unavoidable because our lives constantly demand judgments about right and wrong, justice and injustice. The purpose of exploring these dilemmas is not to provide easy answers, but to awaken what philosophers call the restlessness of reason. By examining our reactions, questioning our principles and testing them against new cases, we begin a lifelong process of moral self-understanding. This journey is challenging, sometimes unsettling, but deeply meaningful. In the end, the story of moral philosophy is not just about trolley cars or abstract theories. It is about us, our values, and the kind of society we hope to build together.